Hey, welcome back to Relax Radio. It's Relaks, and this is Real Talk with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 5 p.m. And yeah, we're talking about a lot of the things, today we're talking about, especially what we were talking about was the digital vaccine certificates. So yeah, that is what we were talking about, the passport, the COVID passport that, the government wants to implement in the UK. Well, a lot of the people in England are, concerned, and there's been a lot of criticism and backlash because of this COVID vaccine, the COVID vaccine passports. And the Scottish government, though, is considering making digital certificates available to people who have had the COVID-19 vaccine. And this was all said by the health secretary. And yeah, Jean Freeman also said that they were also looking at how the documentation might be used and in what circumstances. So, she further said that they had to consider ethical and equality questions. So it came into light. This whole situation came into light, when Boris Johnson confirmed that the COVID status certificates would be trialed in England from mid-April. And the UK government has said that, a scheme could have an important role to play both domestically and internationally, and is likely to become a feature of our lives until the pandemic recedes. Now, a lot of people are questioning, will it recede though? Will we still be using this even after the pandemic is done? That is what a lot of the concerns that, is surrounding these COVID vaccine passports. And I, for one, totally in agreement why, you should do your research, and why you should also not put your whole 2 feet into the water, because at the same time you don't really know how long, because the government, the government, no matter what's said and done, the government will make sure that even after this is the whole pandemic situation is done, they tend not to abolish these kind of rules, because it's power. It's more power for the government, and the government likes that. I mean, come on, it's very difficult to relinquish power especially when it comes to something like this. Like I said, a couple of days ago, the issue that we were talking about, what if you get the COVID vaccine passport and then, all of a sudden it's not just COVID anymore. It's going to be it's going to be a health card. That's essentially what I'm trying to say. It's going to turn into a diabetes card, or maybe, it could be, cholesterol, it could be hyperlipidemia, and all those kind of diseases or disorders. And it's because of those, then that will decide whether you get a job or not, or maybe enter university or not. So it depends on all of these things. And this is something that a lot of people are opposed to. And it is totally understandable why a lot of people are against all of this. I mean, it's just one of the reasons. I mean, if I, for one, don't totally 100% agree also with what is going on, but, these digital documents, essentially, like I said, it could record whether a person has been vaccinated, whether they recently tested negative, or had natural immunity. And, it could be seen as a possible means of enabling this whole mass audience events. So yeah, a lot of these events, can start again and take place hopefully in the near future. So Ms. Freeman said any scheme in Scotland should operate digitally as far as possible. And she further states, I don't want to put any unnecessary burden on the health service, on our GP practices, for example, with everyone going looking to get the bit of paper that says I've been vaccinated. I mean, she does make a fair point also, but because I want, those GP practices to be able to return as quickly as it is possible to delivering all the services they were before the pandemic. So we're currently looking at what would be the digital infrastructure you'd need for any form of certification, as we've worked out through those ethical, equality, and practical questions about how it might be used and in what circumstances. So yeah, that's just some of the things that she was addressing, and how, all of this could affect the people in Scotland as well. So, the thing is, as we prepare, to open more of society up, a controversial question is going to need to be answered. And that is, should we have domestic vaccine passport? Well, a version of them, also taking into a recent account, these tests and natural immunity, is to be trialed in England. And that's going to be happening around mid-April. The plan is to, discuss this, and the government plans to discuss and make a review on trialing and, giving it a shot and seeing whether they can use these COVID passports domestically. And should that approach be mirrored in Scotland? Well, on the one hand, allowing people to socialize in a bigger crowd, provided they can prove that they've been vaccinated or make lower, have lower risks or prone to the disease, makes kind of sense if you really think about it. But there are obvious concerns, though. And what happens, to people who haven't had the recent tests or are still waiting for the jab, or for whatever reason decline the vaccine? Are they all turned away at the door? That is the big question that people are asking themselves. If I don't get the vaccine, or if I'm unable to get a vaccine, will I be shunned by these pubs? Or, will I be shunned by these social events, these gatherings? Will I not be able to attend maybe this concert or whatever? Hopefully in the future, this thing that'll open up, will I not be able to attend these? Will I not be able to show up at this? And will I be turned away? That is the question that people are, concerned about and worried. And one of the reasons why they're pushing back so much because of this. This is the reason why a lot of the people are unhappy, especially because, for instance, what if you're pregnant at that time and you couldn't take the vaccine and you can't, you need the passport though to enter maybe, let's say, whatever place, and then you're barred from that because you did not get the vaccine. And that's just something that, you have to consider. Or what if you're a regular goer at a certain place or certain pub, and then they ask you all of a sudden, you need to get the vaccine, although the government says it's not compulsory, it's not mandatory for you to get the vaccine, and it's not really necessary for you to, be getting the vaccine, to get these passports. It's not really that necessary. But then, you want to attend your pub or whatever, or you want to go to the church or whatnot. I mean, when they bar you at the gates, I mean, that's just an inconvenience right there, and that just strips away the people's, in a way, it strips people's freedom away. And so that is something that a lot of these people are very, very unhappy about. And, it's totally understandable. So, some see it, as a thin edge of the wedge when it comes to these, like I said, civil liberties. And, they're concerned about allowing the government to decide what we can or what can't we do based on our medical history. So, the Scottish government, though, is looking at a digital way for people to show their vaccine status, but it remains unclear whether or not vaccination will lead to these enhanced freedoms. So, the public health expert, Professor Linda Bald, said that it was important to distinguish between the types of vaccine passports being proposed. She said, essentially, she was saying that the trials of these vaccine passports at a large-scale event, all right, in England, were essentially the way forward. So, she further states that, it's absolutely spot on to do a study, look at how it goes, and then use the findings to directly inform getting many more people back into sports events, concerts, festivals, you name it. That's what we're going to have to do in the future. And that is how, she's addressing on this. And she says, on needing a passport for everyday life, she said it was much more difficult. I mean, it is going to be difficult, especially when you want to do your day-to-day chores. To be holding this passport every single time is just a nuisance, in my opinion. I mean, it's just an extra burden that the people in the UK just cannot afford anymore. It's enough is enough. There's too much already, burdening our shoulders. And on top of that, we have to take these COVID passports. It's just a lot to be, taking in. So that's just, some of the things that she was saying. And she said that, it's basically very, very gonna be very difficult. And that the key, to opening these non-essential retail hospitality sectors would need to be, to drive down the incidence and the prevalence of the disease like we did last summer. So she says all this and more. She's been saying a lot of these things. So that's just some of the things that she was discussing. And, it's, in my opinion, like I said, there's the COVID passport has its ups and its downs. Not a lot of people are going to be happy using it, and not a lot of people are against it either. So many people are, in vote of taking and using these passports, but at the same time, you have to realize what is happening when the government forces you to use these passports and to go ahead with this. And when you don't have the choice or the right to even refuse, I mean, that is the real question, though. People are not going to be happy, and that is something that we have to think about. That's just a little food for thought right there. But with that being said, we are gonna take a real quick break. So taking a look at it is 4:22. Good evening.